us here this afternoon. We are here to talk about tax relief. And I want to start by complimenting Chairwoman Linehan and the Revenue Committee on what they've been able to accomplish over the last couple of years. Started with passing LB 1107, which, as you all know, is going to lead to significant tax relief over the next couple of years. In fact, in this two-year budget cycle, overall tax relief will be about $2 billion, and that represents the equivalent of 20% of our general fund budget. That is historic. 1107 will represent about $1.9 billion of that going to direct property tax relief, so that when Nebraskans file for their income taxes this April, they will get back approximately 25% of what they paid into their local school property taxes back to them in that refundable property or that refundable tax credit. That is significant tax relief. But the Revenue Committee did not rest there. They continued to work on additional tax relief. And last year, we were able to pass tax relief for our veterans, exempting their military retirement benefits from Nebraska state income taxes. That will allow us to be able to hold on to our veterans here in the state. They got half of what we are doing with regard to Social Security taxes. We're one of the few states that taxes Social Security benefits, and half of those are now scheduled to come off over the course of the next 5 years. They were also able to pass a bill that will reduce the property taxes on bonds, or at least on ag property, to take it down from 75% valuation down to 50% valuation. So that makes it easier for our farmers and ranchers. They passed tax relief on residential water, on ethanol, on agriculture, and also on starting to bring the taxes on our job creators down to the same level of individuals. And then, of course, we also had Senator Breezy's Bill 408 that would have limited how fast your property taxes could go up to 3%. And that fell 4 votes short, but that's going to be a key part of any sort of tax relief program. So I first want to start just by complimenting the Revenue Committee on all the wonderful things they have done to provide tax relief to the citizens of Nebraska, and Chairwoman Linehan has done an outstanding job of leading them. So let's start by giving the Revenue Committee a big round of applause. Good job, guys. All right. I like how Sharon here is our American Sign Language interpreter, and did you see the sign for the clap? I love that. So, my key message here today is that we have set a 2-year budget. We already passed that budget last year. Nobody should be coming into this session thinking we're going to spend a lot more money. Now, while we may fine-tune the budget, we're not going to be doing a lot more spending in the budget. And that's key, because the reason we have been able to provide tax relief is because we've been controlling our spending. I've now worked with the legislature to pass 4 budgets, and the 4 budgets we have passed, on average, have controlled spending to 2.5% across those 4 budgets, 8 budget years. And that is in contrast to the 6.5% that the budget was growing at before I became governor. Because we are controlling our spending and allowing our revenues to grow, that's how we can have sustainable tax relief. And that's the key here. To be able to have tax relief, we can continue to control spending, which is what we're going to do. We're going to fine-tune the budget. We're not going to add a bunch more spending. And then we're going to allow our revenues to continue to grow, and that's how we're going to have tax relief. And that is the key message. As I release my budget next week, you will see significant room for tax relief. That is what we need to do. We need to give the money back to the people of Nebraska. This is not our money. This is not my money. It's not the legislators' money. This is the money that belongs to the people of Nebraska. It's the people of Nebraska's money, and we need to give it back to them. When we have revenues in excess of what we need to fund our state operations, we need to give it back to the people. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chairwoman Linehan of the Revenue Committee to talk about her focus for this upcoming legislative session.
Thank you, Governor. And I want to thank the Governor for being with us today. And it has been a joint effort between the Governor and the legislature to do these tax cuts. It's been a joint effort since I've been in the legislature, and I think focus on making sure we don't increase spending so we can actually cut taxes and make us competitive with the states around us across the country. We are not currently competitive tax-wise, which is not. And as I'm sure you all saw yesterday morning, Iowa is coming back again and cutting their taxes again. So we're going to be a huge outlier here unless we keep our shoulder to the wheel and keep working on all the things that we have started. So, as the governor said too, and I agree wholeheartedly, we have significant funding over and above our needs. We passed the 2-year budget last year that addressed our needs. There were increases in that for providers. Now, even with a very, very extremely healthy rainy day fund, we have $400 million right now. That will probably go up when the forecasting board meets in February. There is no reason, it's not morally acceptable to keep $400 or $500 million of taxpayers' money that we do not need. Now, exactly what taxes and how, that will be up to the Revenue Committee. I am very honored that we have such a diverse and serious committee. They work well together. They have their priorities. I hope and I have every confidence that this year will go very much like last year. Every member of the committee will have a priority. We will work to get those to the floor. We will put them together if that works, and we'll manage to bring tax relief to every Nebraskan across the state. So that's the goal, and I would welcome any questions. Thank you. And so would the committee.
So what do you think is the best venue to do that with? Income tax, property tax, sales tax? What's your preference?
Well, they're all high, right? So I think we should finish Social Security, which Senator Lindstrom has worked on ever since he's been here. He made great progress last year. He can speak to this better than I, but I think he's going to try and finish that this year. That's an excellent goal. We're losing seniors, and people, when you can live in several states that are a lot warmer today than here and not pay any income taxes, it's silly to think people won't move unless we correct the situation with Social Security taxes. And a lot of states, you don't pay any taxes on retirement benefits up to a certain amount. I think we need to finish the business tax. Businesses, why will we tax businesses more than individuals when they create the jobs? It makes no sense. We need to finish that. We did it last year, but we need to shorten it up so we can get caught up sooner. And yes, I think we need to look at our income tax rates. They're too high. We're not competitive.
Is there interest in bringing back the 3% cap that failed last year? Do you think we might be able to get
We have to. The only way we're ever going to really solve the property tax problem is we have some control over those that spend property taxes. The state, as you all know, does not collect property taxes. We don't spend property taxes. We're now at over $1 billion in property tax relief, and depending on where you live, you might not see that much relief because of spending going up. So we've got to have some kind of agreement across the state that limits increases. Nobody's cutting. Nobody's even introduced a bill to cut. But we need to get control, just like the state government has done. As the governor said, we have managed to keep our spending for the last 4 budgets at 2.5%. The local taxers need to do the same thing. We need to get together and all of us deliver tax rates.
How much of that $400 million do you believe should go back to taxpayers?
All of it.
So
We
that
have-
there would be no increase in the state budget.
Well, okay. First of all, there was a forecasting board in February. And usually, I'm not an appropriator, this is a better question, but there's usually savings as well as extra requests. So I'm sure the governor's budget will show us the way. But if we have a very, very significant rainy day fund, over $800 million, now scheduled to go up to $1 billion. We have, in addition to that, the 3% minimum. So we are very, very secure financially. Paul, I think you had a question.
Are you suggesting that Nebraska should follow other states and exempt all retirement?
I'm not suggesting that yet, maybe. A certain percentage, I do believe, it is in federal retirement. If we want people to stay here, we're gonna have to fix that. And you want people who have money to spend and grandkids to take care of to stay here.
So you're gonna look at that, it sounds like.
Yes.
Tell the governor what you.
Well, I mean, here, we're not gonna get down into the weeds today.
Come on, this is tax policy.
Right. I don't see that bill coming this year. I'm not bringing that bill this year.
And how sustainable is this surplus money that Nebraska has? Is there some caution that needs to be exercised so you don't have taxes too much, and then when there's a bad stretch, Nebraska's legislature has to come in and raise taxes? Or do
There's the same argument I heard last year that it's not sustainable, this won't happen again, we'll be down, we won't have any money.
But it's 2 years.
I do not see the way the revenues are coming in, the way the federal government is spending money, that we're going to have a revenue shortfall in the next, 3 to 4 years. If there is in fact a revenue shortfall, like there was the first year we were here, many of us, my class at least, was here, we adjusted.
If I could just weigh on that too, Paul, if you look at over a 20, 30-year period, generally our revenue's grown about 4.5% a year on that over that average time, 4.5 to 5%. If we continue to control our spending to 2.5%, we will always have the ability to provide that tax relief.
How confident are you that you can get this done in 58 days that are left?
Very.
And why is that?
Because I don't know how you justify not giving people their money back. Andrew.
How will you be able to balance that with maybe a teacher shortage that you have, substitute shortage, as well as maybe healthcare worker shortage, and maybe some of the money might be looked at to try to increase wages or to retain some of those teachers?
I think there will be some bills to address the teacher shortage. I think there's some good ideas, but I think some of the ideas that you can address with that are not that expensive. They're not that big of ticket items. Young teachers have a difficult time making it because so much of their salary doesn't actually end up in their pockets. So, but there'll be some ideas to look at.
You also talk about how you weigh this against the need to serve people with developmental disabilities who are on a waiting list, who have been on a waiting list for years, and at a time when the state has some money, you say, no, you can't have that money because we're going to give it back to taxpayers. How do you weigh that?
Okay, the appropriators do the budget. They have addressed those issues. I have great confidence in the chairman of appropriations and appropriations committee that they have addressed those issues in the budget that we passed last year. I saw another hand, Paul.
A lot of states are offering incentives for people to move to their state. Nebraska has a workforce shortage. Do you think the revenue committee or the governor's office, you guys are going to try to do something about that? Will it be a tax break or incentive for some people to move here?
You're not going to, and I know maybe my 4 adult children are strange or different than other adult children, but I do not think so. When you can get on the computer, sitting in your mom's house in Elkhorn, and look where you can buy a house in Florida, and figure out what your income tax payment would be, or if you bought it in Texas, or Arizona, or Colorado, and you can figure out that you can save $500, $600, $700 a month by living in one of those states, we're not going to keep those people here, let alone retain or recruit. Kids today are they're not kids, young adults are very savvy about budgets. And they know, and they travel, they go everywhere all the time. So if we want young people in Nebraska, we have to fix our tax structure. A third of your house payment can't be property taxes, and you can't be in the highest tax bracket of $28,000. We have a tax problem.
Doesn't that kind of even out? I mean, a $200,000 home in Lincoln's worth $500,000
because if I own a $200,000 home in Florida, I'm building my equity. I'm not paying an exorbitant amount. Florida is not a good example. Other places with lower property taxes, I'm not building any equity. Property taxes are not equity.
What, are there additional steps that need to be done on property taxes besides trying to limit the growth of property tax asking?
We're still really high. And we did a lot of work. We did $1 billion. But as long as they raise them, we've got, the thing has to go together. We have to put some limits, and we have to keep trying to correct our over-reliance on property taxes.
How do you correct that over-reliance?
Well, that's what the revenue committee can figure out in the next couple of weeks.
Are you guys going to have a joint proposal? Or are you going to introduce something on behalf of the government?
We haven't decided yet, have we?
No, the Revenue Committee is the one where the bills will be introduced, and we will be working together to make sure that, obviously I'm going to be making my proposals, but then the Revenue Committee will be taking those to be able to turn those ideas into bills, and we'll be working together to pass that tax relief.
So you're going to have somebody introduce a proposal?
So we'll be working together.
Where does increased state aid fit into this equation?
Increase state aid to whom?
State aid to schools, sorry, education. I know some people feel that's the way to cut property taxes.
We tried really hard to do that a couple of years ago. It didn't get anywhere.
Is that your feeling too?
Let me talk a little bit about state aid education. First of all, in every budget I've ever proposed, I've fully funded the state aid formula to education. Second thing, getting back to what the chairwoman said, without limiting how fast those property taxes go up, when the state provides additional aid, it all gets eaten up by those increased property taxes. So for example, let's look at when the TIOSA formula was passed in 1990. In 1991, the state was giving about $253 million to state aid education. And over the next 3 years to 1993, that more than doubled to $524 million. And then if you go look at the property tax askings from 91 to 93, they were almost exactly identical. So while the state more than doubled the amount of money it was giving to education, property tax asking from education didn't go down. It dipped for a little bit between 91 and 93, but was back up there by 93. That is why it's so important, bills like what Senator Breezy proposed with LB 408, to limit how fast those taxes can go up to make sure that the money the state is providing in aid or in property tax relief goes into people's pockets.
Are you saying you might be willing to see an increase in state aid as a limit on growth?
I have told folks that I don't have problems spending money on education, but the education establishment has to be willing to start taking controls on how fast those askings are going up so that we can make sure that money that we provide in relief goes into people's pockets.
So you say you were within 4 votes last year. What has changed the dynamic to think we can go over the top this year?
Well, I think that's where we work with Senator Breezy on that bill and work with the legislature to be able to see what changes can be made to be able to get those 4 votes.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you all very much.